Everyone, and welcome to In the Blue Corner with Vince Locissand and Steve Khatib. Good evening to you, Steve.
Good evening, Vince. How you going?
I'm well, mate. Of course, our viewers out there no doubt would be very happy with another win that we had this afternoon against the GWS Giants. And I guess it was, I don't know, how would you describe it? A clinical performance, one that we sort of seemed to be in second gear for the first half, and then we put the pedal to the metal in the second half and drew away from them, and they looked like a team that was, ready to put the cue in the rack as far as I was concerned.
I wouldn't be as generous as you have in that summation, Vince. I'd probably say that the first half was disappointing. I wouldn't say second gear. I thought it was disappointing in the ability to have any sort of functional forward line. That being said, the third quarter definitely showed Carlton's class. And then the fourth quarter was probably flattering to Carlton because GWS were effectively witches' hats. They run out of steam. And you could see in their forward line there was essentially an empty 50 or Toby Green with 5 people around him.
That
was. I think we played one quarter. We played probably the third quarter, and if we did play one quarter, we probably played about 2/3 of one quarter in that game for mine.
Fair enough. That's a little harsh, probably in the eyes of a few.
You're a bit generous.
I don't think we covered ourselves in glory in the first half, but I also don't think that we at any stage let them draw away from us or get any sort of a lead or anything like that. We seem to be, basically holding them at bay, but at the same time not drawing away. And it was only until the third quarter that we started to draw away by 4 and 5 goals.
Well, you're dealing with an opposition who's probably won, 4 or 5 games, right? I mean, and undermanned, pretty young. They had 10 players missing. I'm not saying we didn't have players missing either, but
no, a lot of the players were out there too.
Yeah, I wasn't impressed with the first half. But anyway, it's. I think we spoke about it last week, right? What was going to happen? I presented 2 scenarios. You're going to have Carlton, GWS give everything they possibly could, which I think they did, and full credit to them in that first half. And then Carlton just, as the match went on, become too good, or Carlton jumping by, like they did against Hawthorn, Port Adelaide, and the other teams, et cetera, and jumping by 7 goals, and then get real back in. Yeah, absolutely. But look, it was the latter, right? It was the first one, I should say. It wasn't the latter. So, look, definitely Carlton did what they needed to do, and it was a professional performance. But I wouldn't be thinking it was a great win.
Well, look, we were basically 5 goals each at half time. We held 3-point lead due to scoring some more behinds, but then we scored 4 goals to 2 in the third and 4 goals to 1 in the last. So, you'd have to say that the second half we comfortably drew away and never looked under threat. I mean, I think most Carlton supporters would have gone to the ground today thinking, okay, we're going to win this. It's a question of by how much. Yeah. Now, I mean, I predicted a 7-goal win. It ends up being 6. It's pretty close. I didn't think we were ever going to, extend ourselves to the point of playing our guts out and needing a 7-day break. We've got a 6-day break until next week's game against Adelaide in Adelaide. So, so long as we got the job done, I think that's what most people were looking for today. They weren't looking for a 100-point win or even a 10-goal win necessarily. They were looking for just a comfortable, solid performance where we get the W in the W column and move on.
Yeah. Look, they got
do you think there were some disturbing signs in the way we played the game today that could come back and haunt us against better opposition?
Well, I think when our forward line wasn't functional, I thought that the problem was you basically had a pack of players flying for the ball rather than that. What we'd normally have, we'd have the separation between the forwards and the crummers there. So that was one That was one thing. The other one, call me old-fashioned, but some of the kicks, I think it was in the third quarter, Cripps is kicking around the corner from 50 metres out on a not such a big angle. McKay did the same. Now, you're going to say that's old-fashioned potentially, but really, I mean, they couldn't kick drop punts in those situations. And I know that they kick goals like that and everyone's happy and that's the modern way and they practice it and so forth. But, I mean, it was really quite apparent that it was almost every kick, wouldn't matter where they were in the 50 arc. It was that go-to was that round the corner. That was the other one. To me, that's Lairising a little bit. I know you're going to say that's old-fashioned potentially, but
no,
I don't think from when you're more than,
I just question the choice of that particular kick when you're 45, 50 metres out. I don't see too many of those working out well when you're that distance out. When you're 30, maybe 35, okay. But when you start getting to 40, 45 and even 50 metres out, I don't think that's a wise choice.
No, and that's almost to the point where you're beaten before you kick because your percentage of getting that kick through is a lot lower. But again, it's a different game now. But some of the best full forwards would be turning in their grave looking at that stuff. And that being said, I love it. I love it from the boundary line. I think it's a great asset to have if you're able to do that, but not necessarily from 40 metres.
Yeah, but more in the forward pocket, that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that were the disturbing signs for mine. Is the choice there because of lack of confidence? Is the choice there because that's just what they want to do? But I just find, is that mental discipline? What is it? I don't know. It's just not. It's not what you should be doing.
Do you think it's a sign of disrespect for the opposition? Or has it got nothing to do with the opposition?
Possibly.
Yeah.
Maybe subconsciously it was. I know that the players respect every opposition, but subconsciously, you can't help to think that the team that you're playing's won, a handful of games, and you're playing them at home, and they're missing a lot of players. So we've got
there's a little bit of a we're not taking them too seriously feel about
bit of Lairising, right?
I notice we've got our wonderful friend Richard Rashid Hussain all the way from the sand pit in Dubai. How are you, Rash? I hope you're well. I think it was an average performance. Okay. Reliance on stars Sard and Walsh. Cripps looks injured. And our midfielder has issues. We are not smashing teams in clearance and we are not in form. Okay, that's an interesting take. Gina Harris. How are you, Gina? Good evening to you. I'm sure Cripps is struggling with his back. Well, yeah, I think a lot of people are speculating on Cripps's state of fitness at the moment.
He's not running on top of the ground, is he, really? I mean, I
do wonder whether some of those back fractures have managed to come back that he was suffering from last year, because he does so much work in that midfield, and you do wonder whether he may have relapsed into carrying a few injuries again. Jimmy Raptus, how are you, Jimmy? Mackay needs a stern talking to. Okay. It's that kind of crap which is going to lose us a critical game. You might be right. I think we've said that before, that sometimes these decisions to, snap around the corner and try banana kicks and all those sorts of things, it could get us into trouble one day.
Jimmy, but we do love it. We do love it when his liability is an asset when he's on the boundary line and he gets that spin, that helicopter spin right, and it curls in just at the right time, right?
When it comes off, it looks fantastic, but when it doesn't, it looks pretty average. Yeah,
but from the boundary line, you're not expected to kick it either, are you? Like the pressure's off you a little, because it's almost like, well, if I kick it, it's a bonus. If I miss it, I'm probably got to 2 in 10 chance of getting it right.
I think players that use those sorts of kicks rather than the standard drop punt would probably argue, and they might even have a point, that the if you like, the likelihood or the degree of difficulty, if you want to put it that way, if I can use a diving term, the degree of difficulty is lessened if you try those banana type kicks or those kick around the corner kicks, because the spin you put on the ball allows it to go through a wider area within the goals. Right. Whereas if you try and, kick the ball straight and get through the eye of a needle, it's a lot less likely to go through.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of golf in that, Vince, but we won't go into all of that. But it's essentially the arc that you catch the ball on. Yep. Look, I think there's some good themes in the comments we're getting tonight, and Peter Vlahos is. I think we're starting to talk about expecting to win games like this and potentially how we play, because where it'll catch us out against better sides. Peter Vlahos has got an interesting comment, Vince. Did you want to read that one out?
Yeah, for sure. G'day, Peter. Nice to see you with us again tonight. Sometimes they play Hollywood-style football in the forward line. Either Durden or Motlop need to be dropped if Owies is available. I assume that's because you respect Owies' forward pressure a lot more. Sorry, I hadn't finished that comment yet, but anyway, I think it's pretty much what he wants to say.
Otherwise, a gutsy win, he's saying, basically.
Otherwise, a gutsy win, right, okay. Yeah. All right, Jimmy again from 40 out in front, the snap is the wrong kick. Well, I think that's what we're trying to say. If Cripper is able to get shots right this year, most of the time, Mackay, a dedicated forward, needs to expand his toolbox.
That goal from 50, beautiful kick. I think it was 50 metres out, if you remember. I think it sailed through it, goalpost high. And you think to yourself, well, so if he's 10 metres closer, Mackay's now kicking that around the corner.
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't make sense.
He does like those kicks, and he feels a lot more confident doing them than standard straight set shots, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Drop punch shot type shots. All right. Well, it's great to see so many of our viewers giving us a comment, and if any of you out there want to do the same and haven't done so yet, by all means, join us on our Facebook page in the blue corner, or on our YouTube channel of the same name, In the Blue Corner, where we broadcast live every Sunday night at 8 o'clock. All right. I guess, look, just quickly reviewing the game. Final score, Steve, 13-12-90 to 8-6-54. So a 36-point win, 6 goals effectively. Quarter time score was 3-4-22 to 2 goals. So we held a lead of 10 points at quarter time. That had been whittled back to 3, 5-6 to 5-3 at halftime. Then, of course, as I said, we kicked 4 goals to 2 in the third to hold a 17-point lead at 3-quarter time. Now, that wasn't an insurmountable lead, but it did feel like it was just a matter of time before we pulled away, didn't it? Yeah. And, in fact, I think we kicked the first 4 goals of the last quarter before GWS kicked the last one. I think at one stage we were up by 42 or 43 points. So ended up winning by 36. We saw a couple of sensational marks won by players of each side tonight. Wasn't it great to see the high-flying mark return to the game? Toby Green's mark was unbelievable.
Yeah.
The ball was almost past him, in fact, when he sort of reached out and snatched it with his hands.
Absolutely.
And, of course, Adam Sard, just before 3-quarter time.
That was the Adam Sard one.
GWS player, and took an absolute screamer.
The Adam Sard one's the one they practice at training with the almost the soft.
He had the ride, didn't he? He had the ride. I think Toby Green's mark was potentially a lot more difficult and would probably, I suspect, be more of a goal of the year contender than what Sard's was. But they were both fantastic to see, I thought. And by the way, I thought Sard played a fantastic game today.
He did.
so much drive from half back. And in fact, what was impressive was that 22 out of his 25 possessions were kicks. So the Wolf would have been going around the stadium quite a lot tonight, I imagine.
Absolutely. I wonder
this
who
afternoon,
invented,
I should say.
Who invented
He also
that?
took 12 marks, Sadi. So, he's had a lot of the ball today.
Yeah, the coaches better get this high marking speckies out of the game. The players are not going to that structured approach that they want, They're going back to the old days.
And look, if I can just take us a little bit off on a tangent, on the subject of speckies, there's a player who played for Collingwood back in the 70s and 80s who used to take that many speckies it wasn't funny. I guess, in a way, Carlton supporters didn't really like him much because he used to towel up Mark McClure a fair bit back in the day. But Billy Picken, unfortunately, lost his life in the last day or so. And he was a great player, fantastic centre half back for Collingwood, and I think he eventually went to the Sydney Swans, if I'm not mistaken, for a season or two.
Yeah,
right at the end of his career.
When the Swans moved up to Sydney, I think he was part of that.
I think he might have gone there a little bit after that. I could be wrong, but I think he might have gone there a couple of years after they'd already gone to Sydney. But anyway. The reality is that he was mainly known as a Collingwood centre half back. So, obviously, his son Liam Picken played for the Western Bulldogs and was part of their premiership team of 2016 as well. So, our condolences to the Picken family and a sad loss for AFL football.
Yeah, and uncle of Jonathan Brown as well, obviously. Great Brisbane.
Yes, that's right.
As well. Look. Watching those replays, as we all have throughout the 70s, those rivalry games, even though you hated Collingwood, right? You got to know all their players so well, literally.
Well, I remember when the song "Up There, Kazali" came out, and they had sort of all of these bits and pieces of football highlights, high-flying marks, and whatever. And one of them, if you look back on the original ad, and I'm sure you'll be able to find it on YouTube if you look hard enough, you'll see Billy Picken, that number 25, flying over a pack and taking a big specky mark. That was classic Billy Picken, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. He was. Would he be your Jeremy Howe type of the modern day? For Collingwood, that type of player. I mean,
yeah, probably. I think Jeremy Howe's probably a. Slightly different. Billy Picken used to hold down a key position, centre half back.
Yeah,
I think Jeremy Howe's more of a roving half back flanker type.
Yeah,
more of an intercept marker. But Billy Picken used to hold down some of the game's best centre half forwards, and they were pretty solid, tall, key position players.
Yeah, it was Peter Knights and all of those players in that era.
Yeah, Peter Knights, Mark McClure, Paul Vanderhaar, you name it. He'd play on all of them. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a shame. Very sad.
Yes. All right. Moving right along. So, we've got a comment here from Kathy Kirkpatrick. How are you, Kathy? Nice to see you with us tonight. Think we need some positivity tonight. Okay, too much negativity for mine. What were we negative about? Thought it was a strong, gutsy win and would have been a lot more if we had ticked straighter. 13-12's reasonable, I would have thought. But also take nothing away from the pressure by GWS, especially early. Yeah, look, I agree. I think we were always going to get some resistance from them, especially for half a game. I just felt that when we turned on the screws, or when we tightened the screws, if you like, and really applied the pressure in the second half, they didn't know how to handle that too well. And grossly undermanned, I think, on the day. They put up a reasonable performance, but, I always expected to win that game, and I think we won it as we expected to. Some might be disappointed with, the margin, would have expected maybe a 10-goal win. But, look, job done, move on, another 4 points. We consolidate our position in the 8 and give ourselves a real chance to finish top 4 potentially if we can have a real good run at it in the last 4 weeks.
Yeah.
All right, Steve, let's go straight to our votes, shall we? 3, 2, 1. Who do you like? And by the way, everyone, if you'd like to give us your 3, 2, 1, please send us your thoughts in the comments.
Yeah, I'd go Charlie Curnow 1, Adam Sard 2, and Sam Walsh 3.
Right. Charlie Curnow 1. I assume that's for his 4 goals?
Yep.
And his 10 marks?
Yep.
18 possessions too. Not bad for a centre-half forward, is it?
Especially when the ball wasn't exactly being delivered lace out. I could have probably given him more votes, to be honest.
Well, he's leading the Coleman medal with only 4 weeks to go. So who knows? We might have 2 different Coleman medalists from the same club in consecutive years. Has that ever been done before? I wonder whether that's ever happened before, where you've got 2 Coleman medalists finishing, I guess, obviously finishing on top of the goal kicking in consecutive years, but different players from the same team.
Yeah,
I don't know that would have happened too many times.
It's a luxury to have, mind you, let's be honest, the Coleman medal back in the old days was 100. Most of them were kicking 90, 100 goals, weren't they? Now they're kicking 60 goals.
65, 70, yeah. How many did Mackay kick last year? Would have had to have been at least high 50s, if not low 60s or something.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Maybe someone else can tell us. Maybe if you know what the answer is to that question, send us the answer in the comments if you wouldn't mind. That'd be great. So Harry Mackay won it last year. Charlie, I think, is at least 4 or 5 goals, if not 6 goals in front.
He's 3 or 4 in front of Jeremy Cameron.
And it's interesting that Geelong have got Jeremy Cameron and Tom Hawkins, who are only about, 3 or 4 goals apart themselves in second and third position. So if you combine their goals, you're talking, close to 120 goals between those 2 players.
Yeah.
Whereas Charlie and Harry would probably be closer to maybe 90. Brad Turner, 57, is it? Thanks, Brad. Much appreciated. So Harry,
it's not a bad haul in an ordinary side. 57. Yeah.
Well, Harry did kick those goals in a fairly ordinary team, but we did pass the ball to him a lot. Don't forget, Charlie Curnow didn't play up until I think the last 4 games of the year. So we were heavily reliant on getting the ball to Harry. That's probably why he hasn't kicked as many goals this year, because we've had the luxury of both of them.
Yeah.
It would be great to see Charlie win.
It would, especially coming back off, basically no football for 2 years, give or take a few games.
Sure. All right, I'll give you my 3, 2, 1. I gave 3 votes to Adam Sard. I thought he was fantastic. Off half back, 25 possessions, 22 of them were kicks, as I said before. 12 marks, took that sensational mark. He was a great driving force from defence all day, I thought. He was a really good player. I gave Patrick Cripps my second vote. Again, worked tirelessly all day, kicked a really important goal in the third quarter from a set shot when he got that 50-metre penalty and made it count. So I gave him my 2. And my number 1 vote I gave to, I gave to Sam Walsh as well. It was a courageous performance to come back onto the field when we thought. Did you see when he went down with that ankle twist? I think we all had our hearts in our mouths at that point.
They can often look worse than what they are, or they can look as bad as what they are. I know that sounds contradictory, but you can just roll an ankle right and it's okay. But it's just all the ligament damage that's really.
What's important is what's going on inside the ankle rather than what it looks like to the outside. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think they might have given him a bit of elephant juice there off the ground, and he's come back and run with that ankle for the rest of the game, and performed very, very well. 31 possessions again, but I do wonder whether he may have done some damage, and when that elephant juice wears off tonight, he might be hobbling around, probably on crutches and a little bit sore in the next few days. So it'll be interesting to see if there's any further damage caused, and whether we get an update report on him in the next 24 hours or so.
And how much training he can do before next week, right? Quite possibly with that shorter break,
Well, personally, I think, look, against Adelaide, and again, this is no disrespect to the opposition, if he's in any doubt about how fit he might be on that ankle, I'd just give him the week off.
Yeah.
And just say, look, just get it right, give it some rest. Because those next 3 games after that against Brisbane in Brisbane and Melbourne here and Collingwood here, they're going to be crucial games.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, if it means we've got to go to Adelaide without Walshy, I would give him a rest. I just want to give I know I've given my 3-2-1, Sard 3, Cripps 2 and Walsh 1, but I also want to give a special mention to one player who came back into the team today, who I thought performed really well, and good on him. He played his guts out in the VFL, got 40 possessions last week to really earn his spot. I was glad that the club, well, the selection committee were true to their word on selection integrity. He earned his spot back in that team, and he played today, and I'm talking about Will Setterfield. Now, I'm not sure if it's because it was against GWS, because that's his old team, but I thought he played really well for his 24 possessions, 8 marks, kicked a really nice goal in the first quarter, that snapshot from the right-hand pocket, and I thought he really held his head up high and more than earned his spot for next week.
I saw him named, and I thought, okay, so your papers aren't stamped necessarily. You're basically how you play. Everyone's got a fair go.
Well, he earned himself another opportunity, didn't he? That's what he did. He wasn't given an opportunity. He earned it back, and Nunes had to sit out. So this week, Nunes, because of a couple of quiet weeks, lost his spot. In comes Setterfield, and he earns his spot, and he makes sure that he takes advantage of that opportunity.
Well, my question was, he's certainly created a headache for the selectors because you couldn't drop him after that. I mean, if there was probably 5 votes to be given, he could have fitted in.
Yeah. Well, he had to bide his time in the VFL for a long time once he got dropped the first time around. So if players like Nunes and others that are still, like Stocker got dropped this week, if they've got to earn their way back into the team, well, so be it. No one should be just given games willy-nilly. They've got to earn their spot.
Absolutely. So
I wanted to give him a special mention as well. And I thought young Cottrell did well too, kicking a couple of goals today.
Yeah, no, he was good. I thought he was, again, a player that, in the past has been much maligned, but to be honest, he's probably been one of the top 10 players nearly every week. I would have thought. So you can't drop him. I mean, he's becoming a regular starter now, not one of those players that was in that sort of 18 to 22 bracket where you'd be potentially being dropped or in and out of the team. He's now a regular starter. I thought
he is a regular starter. They're not even putting him on the bench anymore. They're just putting him on the wing.
Yep.
I'd like your comments on the return of Mitch McGovern today. 10 possessions, 8 kicks and 2 hand passes, took 7 marks. What did you think? You'd be pleased that he got through the game without injury, it seems.
Yeah, they did say, though, that he was going to get through the game the week before, and that was the real test, and he did that. So, look, you got to give him a few more games, I think.
Can you see why he's an important cog in that defensive unit, though? I mean, it must have been a relief to Michael Voss to know that he was coming back into the team this week and that we weren't looking at who's dropping out of the team through injury, because most of our defensive unit this year, we've had to look at who's going to come in and fill a gap caused by someone getting injured. This time, we've got our staple players like Wiedering and Young, and in comes McGovern as the intercept backman.
I'd say he's the essential cog in the team.
Subject to fitness, obviously.
Yeah, but more so when you don't have a full back line. I think I don't think he's as good as his namesake at West Coast necessarily.
Of course.
Yeah, but...
And GWS, let's face it, they had Toby Green up front and not much else.
Yeah, everybody hates Toby Green, but, I mean, he...
Really? I don't hate Toby Green. I think
I actually don't. No, I don't. But, I mean, he gets booed and everything, but if you look at the work rate and how he has to take 3 or 4 defenders, plus someone coming into the hole to block his lead, I mean... Yeah, it's amazing, and it's so predictable. They always play through him as well. So, look, McGovern. I don't want to talk about Liam Jones. He's no Liam Jones yet, though. There's a long way to go for him to stake his claim as an important defender. But I think that role that he plays is needed.
It'll be really interesting, and I'm sure it'll be invaluable to Michael Voss and the rest of the coaching staff to witness Mitch McGovern in the next 4 games before the finals.
Yeah, I was about to say
that's really going to test how well he plays that position. I mean, we saw him in the first 2 games of the year and played pretty well. Today, he came back on and after a 15-match layoff, he's come back in and acquitted himself okay. He goes up against his old team next week in Adelaide, so that'll be an interesting homecoming for him.
Yeah, it will. And you're right. Look, it's not about...
No doubt he'll be on the end of a few boos from some of the local South Australian crow eaters.
Yeah, well, absolutely. But look, it's not about the one game. It's more about the consistency of what he's doing in that role, right?
Yeah.
And how he helps the other players out. It's definitely the pressure off Wiedering, though, isn't it, really? Because Wiedering was Wiedering and Young a little bit more, but they were the sole intercept markers. And it allows them to play a little bit more freely, doesn't it?
True. Indeed. All right. And is there anything else you wanted to discuss about the game today?
Oh, not really. I think it was pretty... I think we've covered it.
It seemed to be a sort of a clinical performance, one where we never really looked threatened as far as losing the game, but I think we were all getting a little impatient at times that we kept them in it, and that just when we looked like pulling away a few times, they'd come back and peg back the margin, and you look up at the scoreboard and at half-time we only got a 3-point gap, and you think, geez, it's almost like having to start again for the second half, but I think we looked very much in control in that second half. I don't think we were ever going to lose that game.
The second half, yes, definitely. I would agree with you.
Yeah. All right. If you've got any comments, questions, or topics you'd like to discuss, or you'd like Steve and I to discuss, by all means, put them up on our Facebook page in the comments or on YouTube in the blue corner. All righty. Now, one of the things I noticed today was quite a number of woofs around the ground, thanks to Adam Sard. 22 of them in actual fact. I don't think they woofed any of his 3 hand passes, but I think they woofed just about every one of his 22 kicks. Would that be fair?
Yeah.
It seems to have really caught back on, Steve.
Yeah, it certainly has. He's become a cult hero, really, I would have thought, if you think about it. The dynamic nature of the way he plays, the excitement that he brings, how he sets up the attack from defence. He's. I mean, as much as we love our midfielders, he's really exciting to watch, and also competes one-on-one as well when needed. So, I think you've got a player there that I must admit a lot of our recruits have been busts, or we paid huge overs for them.
Yep.
But I think we got really good value with this one, and he wasn't cheap either, by the way. But I think we've got really good value and good longevity out of him as well.
Well, I think it's not so much an issue of whether he's cheap or not. I mean, I think most clubs don't mind paying big money to a good player that's worth it. The question is, are you getting value for the money you're paying him? And I think we're getting pretty good value for Sard. I mean, he's not, as you say, he's not cheap, but out of all the high-priced recruits we've brought to the club in recent years, such as Mitch McGovern, Jack Martin, and even Adam Chera this year, I actually think Sard's the one who's giving us our best value for money in terms of recruits from other clubs on big money contracts.
I think he's actually we got him. If you look at the way he's playing this year, I think you actually got him cheap. If you really think about it, I think in any other team, he makes a huge impact. Right, it's not just in our team, but anywhere universally, that running half back role, he'd be arguably one of, if not the premier running half back, if not one of the top 2 or 3 in the whole competition. Would you agree?
Yeah.
sort of, well, it's interesting. You know, he came into the club right when Cade Simpson retired, and it was almost like we were getting another version of Cade Simpson, a younger, 10 years younger version, left footer who could. I mean, I remember when Simo used to, fly for marks and take them and all that sort of thing, and run off half back and break the lines and run right through the middle of the ground and cut up the opposition. He used to do that quite a lot, but that wasn't when he was 36 when he retired. It was when he was 26, 10 years earlier.
Just after he came out of the midfield.
Adam Saab was basically a young version of Cade Simpson coming in.
Simo was a midfielder, and they sort of then pushed him to a half back.
Yeah, as they often do with midfielders who start getting on a bit in years.
Yeah, that's right.
As they did with Bradley back in his twilight years, and Jimmy Buckley back in his twilight years. He even played in the back pocket towards the last year or two of his career. All right. Well, it's interesting that the Wolf is back, and I'd like to give a big shout out to the boys at the Jumper Punch for bringing that back. There is that. Listen, there's been a lot of conjecture as to who brought the Wolf back. I can tell you that weeks leading up to the official announcement of Adam Saab being made the new Wolf by Ange Christou, it was, in fact, Rocco and Paul and Mars on the Jumper Punch who discussed it and mentioned that they wanted to bring it back. And I can assure you that I was even involved in getting Rocco and Ange together in order to make that happen. So Vince, if in fact you look at the Jumper Punch Facebook page or their Instagram channel or their TikTok, you'll notice that there's a video there with Rocco and Ange, and that's when it was all recorded. And of course, as the club always does when it sniffs something like this going on in the background, it decided to jump in and try and take all the credit for it and send over someone to see Ange as well. And then they put it all over the Carlton website and put it all over the media and everything else and tried to take credit for it all. But let me assure you, the boys from the Jumper Punch were the ones that brought it about.
So Adam Saad grew up in West Brunswick, right? Without going into the history. So Ange Christou knew him from back then.
They lived next door to each other, basically.
Yeah, exactly right. So prior to him growing up, going to the Gold Coast,
teaching him how to kick left foot,
all of that stuff, right? So number one, number two, the way he plays off half back. Chris was probably deeper. He's more of a back pocket, right? But regardless, same way that game's changed a bit running half back now. But I mean, come on, Carlton, really. Do you have to be that disingenuous as a club where you can't acknowledge a supporter-based movement? I mean, what? No. I think the rich tapestry of the supporter groups is that you've got shows such as the Jumper Punch who are not affiliated with the club, speak their mind, and not puppets with the strings being pulled for the club to spout their propaganda. They're their own entity, and they will not be held to ransom by the club. And then you've got, driving with Sam Pang or those sorts of things, whatever, Andy Marr and all of those things, which are sponsored by this one and that one, and it's all just basically pre-scripted. Yeah, it's nice. Don't be wrong. It's nice, but you all know it's all pretty much along orchestrated. The line. And everybody lives happily ever after, right? In all of these interviews, don't they? Right. Yep. Whereas the grassroots supporter shows are more about, hey,
the real world.
If we see something that we want to challenge. That's okay. It doesn't mean you don't love the club more. In fact, if anything, you love the club more because you're prepared to call it out. Now, rather than just get your PR machine to just jump on back a winner, understand and acknowledge these grassroots movements, such as the Jumper Punch, and understand that they actually set that up. Yep. Don't just try and ride on the coattails and con people, because maybe not a lot of them know the Jumper Punch and all they do is log into your app all the time and just read your articles and think whatever is said in your articles is gospel. I mean,
Yep.
come on. The beautiful thing about this now is that there are these other groups of people who are not sanctioned by the club that have their programs, unique as they are, authentic as they are. Give them credit. Don't steal them. So I'm on my soapbox, but that is as plastic as it gets from the club doing that to try and rebrand it as their own and not even acknowledge that group of people.
That's the saddest part for me, is that they weren't prepared to at least include the guys from the jumper punch and acknowledge their idea and to make them feel part of the club's push to help them along. Why can't the club come along and say, hey, we've heard this is happening. What a great idea. Thanks to you guys for instigating it. You know, how can we come along and help you? How about we do a video and we'll put it up at Marvel Stadium and we'll get Ange Christou to talk about it, and we can include you guys in it. But Vince, they seek to bully their way in and basically push them aside like the bully in the yard at school. That comes through and just pushes you aside and says, I'm going to take the spoils here.
They did this with you too, though, with the Carltonians. Yep.
Yes.
Everything has to be corporatized. Everything. They have to put this corporate control, China state media control over it, right? Can't they just understand that the beauty of this club is all these podcast shows, whatever they are, and just allow them to be. And if a podcast comes up with a great idea, guess what? They're promoting the club. Well, they're actually promoting the club, these podcasts.
Yeah, that's right.
You know what I mean?
That's exactly right. So why can't we all be together? Why can't there be a coexistence where we're all helping each other to get the message out? Why does it have to be just the club and no one else matters?
Because people, and I know you're going to get maybe, I don't know if you're going to get annoyed. I'm going to say it anyway.
No,
people
go for it.
in Princes Park are paid six-figure salaries in the media department, probably don't barrack for Carlton. That's okay. Probably grew up as Hawthorn, Collingwood, Essendon supporters.
Doesn't matter, whatever. Yep.
And either haven't done their homework enough or aren't authentic or genuine or passionate enough to actually jump on and embrace Carlton and understand what makes a supporter tick and understand what really goes on out on level in Q15 at the MCG rather than behind the glass, and understands what is the real supporter culture that Carlton has. And taps into that. Right, and understands and is created enough to do their social media and their programs and shows around that. Instead, it's a cut and paste, mention the sponsor here, ask the questions here, everybody's happy. I mean, and guess what? The jumper punch and programs such as it have gone, you know what? People had this previously sterile web-based content that they were watching. And now we're actually going to provide an alternative to them, which is more a unique supporter grassroots up content, whether you sat at the Lygon Street end, whether you sat in the Gardner stand, whether you sat in the Pratt stand, whether you stood in the Heatley terraces, whether you're in the Harris stand, Vince, wherever you were, didn't matter. You could identify with that. Or whether your parents were that way and you were new on the scene, you could still tap into that, right? But this current crop, it's clinical, it's social media. This year I work for Carlton, next year I work for another club. I'll do Hawthorn, I'll go work somewhere else, and it's cut and paste template. It's plastic. There's no blue blood in it.
No.
And that is the
no different to assistant coaches that go from one side this year to another side next year. They're part of your team this year. They're part of a different team next year.
And that's the sad part, right? That's the sad part of all of this is that supporters actually they have that. They know who the Peanut Man was. They know the I think you call it the smells of the football. They know They know that you can go and buy a super dog down at the hot dog stand that used to measure almost a metre. They've been bogged in the.
It looked that much anyway.
Correct. They've been bogged in the car park. Many a day, right? They know.
They heard the announcement over the PA with the owner of registration, ABC 1, 2, 3. Please go to your car because you've left your lights on and your engine running, and you've got your son in the back seat. Do you remember those days?
Yep. Yeah.
Yes, I know.
Ding, ding, ding.
Well, look, it just goes to show you, though, Steve, just getting back to your original point, that we may have seen a change of change of board members nearly 12 months ago now. It's getting on to about 10 months ago when all of the board changed over a bit. But the culture is still the same. It hasn't changed.
No.
And that's what a lot of our supporters just fail to realise, is that it's still corporatised. It still hasn't changed its deep-seated corporate culture. And yes, you've got a far more people-friendly, palatable president than what we may have had beforehand in terms of PR ability and public speaking and all that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, that's just a facade. What matters is matters like we're discussing tonight. That idea, for example, where the club has just muscled its way in and taken it over like it owned it. So rather than making a supporter group and a little social media show that's really gaining in popularity, by the way, rather than including that show in its promotion of the Wolf.
What the club could have done is said, and this is where they completely had got no clue, because it's about insecurities of individuals, right? And I understand that social media people are paid huge money.
Mm-hmm.
They could have gone, the social media team could have made it about the jumper punch and how this unique little program, whatever the viewership, few thousand a week, whatever it is, right?
Yep.
Created this grassroots movement where now suddenly linked to Christou, linked to Sard, and everyone now says Wolf. And isn't it a great story?
But isn't it a wonderful idea
the
to
story
galvanise
is the social media program. The story is all of that. The story is not you stealing it and rebranding it as your own. That's just unethical. Well, ethics? Do I expect that? No.
Well, it's disappointing, but this is clearly another example on display of how the club operates. And from that point of view, it hasn't changed in a lot of what it does. It's no different to, when I talked about, the president not being prepared to come up and say hello to a supporter group in Western Australia 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And it's the same as, every time he goes on to a radio show or someone's social media page or whatever, or some sort of social media show, they have to know what the questions are in advance. They have to know what the answers are in advance. It's all pre-scripted, pre-orchestrated, and it's plastic. It's just, there's no authenticity about it. That's the problem.
Zero.
Peter Vlahos, Wolfgate. I love that.
Oh, is it Wolfgate? Is it Wolf or Wolf?
Wolfgate.
Wolf or Wolf? Anyway.
Wolfgate.
Wolf.
It should be Wolf, by the way. WOOF, as in the noise a dog makes, not Wolf as in that
Wolf.
That
not the
animal.
Wolf of Wall Street.
No.
The Wolf of Wall Street.
We'll have to call Adam Sard the Wolf of Lygon Street.
Yeah, that's it.
Anyway, it's good to see the Wolf back, and it really does galvanise the Carlton supporters. And I'm speaking with Rocco. That's the reason that they did it. They wanted to do something that was going to bring the supporters together in unison to all get behind a certain thing that was going to, be the source of a great laugh. Every time, Ange used to get the ball and he used to kick it, we'd all go woof and all have a bit of a chuckle about it.
But these are the traditions, right?
It's almost like Carlton's version of the Mexican wave. Remember the Mexican wave that people used to do so often? Yeah. You don't see that all that often anymore, the Mexican wave.
These are the traditions that have gone out of the football because it's been so corporatized now. So these little things add that unique, or Carlton don't play at Princess Park anymore. I'm at Marvel Stadium. I don't even know whose home game it is unless I look at the logos up there because it all the same. But if I hear the Wolf, I know that the Carlton supporters are there, and I know that's a unique match day tradition
Yes.
that is there, and that's that unison or unity amongst it, right?
Of course.
What it is. These are intangible things that people will look back at 20, 30, 40 years' time. Well, Vel Perovic was the first one.
He was, and that was 40 years ago.
There you go. Geez, shows
40
how old
years ago when we brought out and it didn't happen. It didn't happen straight away, but someone started it, and it just caught on because he used to boot that ball from the halfback flank that far.
Yeah.
And that's why everyone went woof. I mean, it was really an expression based on, being amazed at how long he could kick the ball.
Yeah.
And it just caught on from there. Yeah.
Yeah. That's right.
Exactly.
So was that 81? Was that 81?
Around 81, 82, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it'd be 40-odd years ago.
Mm.
Yes, and just by the by, we've got a 40-year anniversary of the 1981-82 back-to-back premiership teams coming up in about 3 weeks from now. I think it's the 11th of August. I think they're getting together for a Spirit of Carlton luncheon to celebrate that anniversary. So if you're interested in that, I'm sure the club will be happy to take your money. Contact the club.
What are they asking for that?
I'm not sure how much it is per head. It'd probably be something in the high 100s to 200 a head, I imagine.
Yeah. I used to love
maybe 170, 180, something like that.
I used to love those when the Spirit of Carlton were independent and ran those luncheons. They were.
Well, you see there again. See, that group was taken over by the club. It was run separately from the club by the past players themselves. And yet again, the club said, no, we want to take this over. And now they just do that, literally that one function a year.
Because the past players, I believe, at the time, and they did golf days, they did all sorts of other things that they did. They could actually...
They were great fun, those golf days with the past players. Yeah. Fantastic days.
They could pick where the money went too, couldn't they? Like, so essentially, if they said it has to go back into the football department. It doesn't just go into the debt black hole.
Yeah. It has to be spent on some equipment or, some... it might have even been the employment of somebody within the club or, gym equipment or that sort of thing.
So is anything run independently now at all? Or is it...
No.
I know that the Carltonians got hijacked as well, right?
Well, yes, we did. Yep. We were another one that they didn't feel comfortable running our own show. So they took that over as well. And as a matter of fact, I can tell you that the only coterie group in the AFL now that is run separately to the club is the Essendonians, because they were smart enough to separately incorporate their coterie away from the club. So they are an entity that exists because the members of that coterie decided to do it that way. And because of that, they still do rely on the club to provide certain things like tickets and all that sort of thing. But, gee, why wouldn't the club provide them with tickets? I mean, they generate hundreds of thousands of dollars every year. So at the moment, it's a sort of an uneasy peace there between them and the club, but the club's not going to say goodbye to them because they generate a lot of revenue. So the problem with the Carltonians is that the minute it gets run by the club, it stops doing a lot of the things that used to make the Carltonians great.
Yeah.
And it's not doing that anymore. And that's the problem. And that's a big problem. And that's one of the reasons why I can tell you that they are leaking membership every year. And there's a lot of members that just won't go back.
But who wants to
go? It's not what it used to be.
Who wants to go to the footy if you're that way inclined that you want to lunch and everything, right? Who wants
it's just nowadays, because the club's taken it over, it is literally another corporate function at a lower level than what the president's room is. It's just yet another politically correct woke function, where the MC's woke, the guest speakers are woke, and it's all as plastic and as fake and as non-genuine as you can think of. So if that's what floats your boat, then join.
So
that's all I can say.
You can get a lunch in the AFL.
Oh, it'll cost you $450 a head.
Yeah, but you can get a lunch in the AFL members for $180 and do the same thing.
Sure.
I think what you're going with that one was the unique element of what the Carltonians had, which I think is the same thing as we're talking about the jumper punch, is that it was run for the people, by the people, right?
Correct. We were self-governing. We had a constitution that we all agreed to abide by, whether it was the running of our elections or the managing of our money, or how people were elected onto a committee. We had a book of rules, and we were self-governing. And because you have members involved in running their own coterie, they feel like it's theirs. They belong.
Yeah.
And that they are the ones electing who they want as their president or their secretary or their treasurer, not the club controlling everything, as you say, like the Chinese Communist Party, coming in like the Gestapo and running it the way they just want to run it, and that's it. You've actually got the members taking an active role in what happens on match day. One of the beauties of our match day functions used to be the entertainment side of it, and also the camaraderie between the members, and it was just a very, very different style of function to what it is now.
Yeah,
very, very different.
Yes, I would think that. I mean, I've been to a few presidents type lunches, and not all Carlton ones, but other ones. And look, don't be wrong, all you can eat and drink's not bad. No one knocks it back if you're not paying for it. But let's be honest. It's not exactly a lot of fun, is it? I mean, it's.
If I can tell you, for the years that I used to be president of the Carltonians, and I was president for 8 years, and I was on the committee for 20. And I'm a life member of that coterie, because you have to be a member for 25 consecutive years to get life membership. But I can tell you that what used to be really special about it is the sheer fun and camaraderie that we had between the members and their guests, and how special those people were made to feel. Yeah. Anyone who was a member of our coterie, I wanted to make sure that they felt special about being part of it. And if they brought a guest along to a function, I'd go up to them and welcome them and talk about how wonderful the member was that invited them there, and how lucky they are to be spending the day with that member, and all that sort of thing. Now, that makes the member feel 10 foot tall. That makes the guest feel special. And the other thing is, we used to have a lot of fun. We'd crack jokes. I mean, I used to tell jokes up on the microphone. Not all of them, I can tell you right now, we're politically correct, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to tell any. But regardless of that, it was good fun. And a lot of those years were when we were on the bottom of the ladder. Yeah. And you had to make it something worthwhile and something that they felt was value for money, because if at the end of the year you finish bottom of the ladder or bottom four, and if you're not having a good time in that function, you're not going to fork out your $5,000 or $10,000 at the end of the year, are you? No. By the way, it's about $5,000 for one member. A lot of members come with their partner, so they pay for two, so that they pay 10. But it just depends on whether you want to bring either a business partner with you, or your life partner, be it your wife, your husband, or girlfriend, boyfriend, etc. But if you wanted to just join as a single person, you could. But whether you're spending $5,000 or $20,000, you're more than happy to do it if you're actually enjoying yourself and having a good time, and you're networking, and you're doing all of those things that happen within coterie groups. But when you're self-governing, that happens a lot better than when you're being controlled by a dictatorship. And that's unfortunately what the Carlton Football Club has become. A dictatorship. Make no mistake. Nothing happens at that club without the club's board or administration rubber stamping it.
Absolutely. No, agree. And that's where, if they were smart, they'd give the credit to the wolf. They'd give the credit to these boys who were essentially promoting, the club for them, right? And bringing culture to the club. And they'd actually be more liked for that. But instead, they just couldn't handle giving anyone any credit, and instead took the way of trying to rebrand it. Because those people in the marketing teams, obviously, and the social media teams, obviously felt that they become irrelevant. Well, no, your job is to actually capture the culture of the club from a grassroots up, not for you to invent supporter culture. Supporters invent supporter culture. All you guys do in the social media is report on it and bring it to everybody. But the supporters are the club.
Correct. Now, look, Brian Cook, our CEO, has been there for 9 months now. I'm not sure whether this is on his radar, but if it's not, it should be. Because if he's going to be fair dinkum about changing the culture of the club, these are the sorts of things where I believe change needs to be made.
He won't be
and
allowed
I'll be interested to see whether in his last 2 years and 3 months he actually does anything about it, or whether he's even allowed to do anything about it. Because at the end of the day, he's still governed by what the board wants, and it's the board's culture which is ultimately the problem. The corporatisation of the club has already well and truly entrenched itself.
He's employed by them. He gets his $1 million a year by them. He won't be able to. And there's richer people than him that control him, unfortunately.
That's true.
Influences
I'm just simply saying that if you're going to be sprouting, oh, yes, I'm here to change the culture of the club, well, there's an area that he should be looking at. And if he doesn't, he's either not interested or he's being controlled by people up above. Johnny Redmond. Hi, Johnny. Good to see you, mate. John was my vice president at the Carltonians. He's watching tonight. That's good to see.
You got some Dorothy
Vince, I want you back at the Carltonians as soon as possible. We all need you. No, you don't. I think the Carltonians has moved on since me. I have told John that, look, the only as he's alluding to there, I have since left the Carltonians. I haven't been back since COVID started, to be honest. One of the conditions I've put on ever coming back is that the club's got to relinquish control. If the club agrees to relinquish control and to allow us to go back to having our own book of rules, our own constitution, and allow us to govern ourselves and control what we do as a committee, elected by our own members, unless they're prepared to do that, I'm not going to be coming back. I'm not interested. It's not the Carltonians I know. It's not the Carltonians I grew up with. It's not the Carltonians I respected. It's not the Carltonians I made such a huge part of my life. It's not the Carltonians which basically resulted in me getting a life membership at the club. I put in a hell of a lot of work to make it what it became, and in no time they stripped it of that. And now I've got to tell you, it's a shadow of itself.
These people, though, Vince, let's be honest.
Yeah,
they move into a different world. They move in the Collins Street, Spring Street end of town.
The corporate high end of Collins Street.
Absolutely.
Top end of town.
They make a few phone calls, a few texts, and they can make things happen.
Sure.
Everything they want, they get their own way. Nobody ever tells them
they don't lose.
No, they don't, because they've got the money and they've got the control. I could say a lot of other things, but I won't. But essentially, that's how they work. And the only one day of the year they hate. There's one day.
Annual general meeting.
Thank you very much. and that's the only day where plebs get
there's half a chance that someone might ask a question which holds them accountable.
Well, members, sorry, I wouldn't say plebs, in their mind plebs, but members, right, customers to them, get to ask them a question. If it's not on the internet, they can actually turn up, because on the internet they can filter it out. And they get all their cast of thousands, all their advisors are sucking up to them 364 days of the year, but on this one day in February, all right, not September, but February, that is the day that they get the actual members get the opportunity to ask them questions. And these are the sorts of issues, unfortunately, that need to be raised to them. But relinquish control, never. That would be a fate worse than death for them.
As I said, it may never happen because of all the reasons you've given, but that's my condition. I will come back if the club relinquishes control of the coterie back to the members. If it's not prepared to do that, well, then don't even bother asking me to come back, because I won't. Simple.
I'll join if they did that. Right?
All righty. Well, everyone, it's been an eventful show. We hope you've enjoyed watching and contributing to the program. Johnny Redmond's got one more comment here. Vince, we always handed the club $270,000 a year because we were the best. Yes, that's what we used to do. And we had a lot of fun raising that sort of money, and we took a lot of pride in raising that money for the club. And, I guess they were the good old days, Johnny. Times have changed, unfortunately.
That's a sponsor,
all right, everyone.
Right? That's a sponsor, really. I mean, essentially, tax-free to get that money.
Yeah.
That's not easy to come about.
But it's not just that. I mean, you've also got a lot of members that not just donate through the coterie. They then turn up to club functions and they'll bid at auctions and they'll sponsor players and they'll get involved at all levels of the club. So, Carltonian members don't just simply turn up to match day and watch the game when we're having a home game against GWS today, for example. They get involved in other aspects of the club. And some of them have even in years gone by become board members. Sam Schwartz, I remember, was a member of the Carltonians many years ago, and he unseated Percy Jones on the board.
That was when you'd voted people in, not got invited, right?
Well, that was in the days when we used to have elections. Yeah. See, that's a whole new show again. Let's not go there, Steve.
Okay. Who we got next week? We've got the Crows.
We've got Adelaide Crows. Yeah. So a quick prediction: Adelaide in Adelaide, Saturday night, 7:30. Dewy surface. Adelaide is another team similar to GWS. They're now third last on the ladder. Again, only the 5 wins and I think 13 losses now. In fact, I think you'll find that they've had something like, is it 4 losses now or 5 in a row?
They're not probably as bad as their position, though, on the ladder. I wouldn't take them as lightly as that. But, they've had...
they've had 5 wins and 13 losses, percentage of 83. The only 2 teams below them on the ladder are West Coast with 2 wins and North Melbourne with 2 wins. And both their percentages are in the 50s. So, they're very much a bottom 4 side. We should be able to beat them over there, you would think, without any real problems. Mind you, they gave Collingwood a scare a couple of weeks ago and almost knocked them off. So you wouldn't want to take them too lightly on their home deck, but really, if we're going to be a serious finals team, we've got to be able to go over there and do a similar job to today. Even if we just came away with it, with a 4 or 5 goal win, I'd be pretty satisfied with that. Interstate game, Saturday night, dewy surface. I tell you what, you wouldn't want to be, only a couple of points in front with 5 or 10 minutes to go in the last quarter, would you? You get a bit nervous about that.
No, it's not an easy place to go. Look, I reckon, it'd be a 3 or 4 goal win there, but it should be a good test for us anyway.
All righty, so look, I think we'll beat Adelaide comfortably, similar to the GWS game today. I'm gonna tip us by 29 points. There you go.
Not 30 points.
Okay, 30 points. There you go. 5 goals even.
I just love the rounding or the lack of rounding sometimes. You like those odd numbers. Anyway.
Well, 29's one of the numbers in my favourite numbers category. I'm born on the 29th of August, so
there you go.
That's why 29 and 8 are 2 of my favourite numbers. There you go.
Who was 29? Was it? I'm just trying to think.
Heath Scotland.
Yeah, that's right. There you go.
And he was a player we sponsored.
Yep.
Back at the Carltonians. Anyway, yes, I'm whatever. 5 goals.
Yeah. Before we go, let's give the Jumper Punch a plug. I know this is not the Mutual Appreciation Society or anything like that.
No, that's all right. We love the boys at the Jumper Punch. They're always promoting our show anyway. They always tell their own viewers about our show on a Sunday night. So let's give them a shout out. Of course, every Tuesday night, if you want to watch the show as it premieres live, you watch it at 8 o'clock on a Tuesday if you're in the eastern states. And of course, being on YouTube, you can go and watch it any time after that. But it's one of those shows that a lot of people actually like to watch live as it's being presented. It's actually recorded at least a day or 2 earlier, but then Rocco puts all of the editing together and and the videos that come on and all that sort of thing. And does a power of work. So it's a fantastic production.
Yeah. Compare that to the club, right? They've got full-time people on the media team doing the editing. They're paid. Yeah. They've got all the equipment and so forth. So this is just a labour of love here, right?
Oh, absolutely a labour of love. Yeah. They wouldn't make much money out of it at all, to be honest. I think there's a little bit that comes back because of the sheer numbers of viewers, but they have their own channel on YouTube, which is called the Jumper Punch channel, and that's where they have a whole series of interviews, which I've actually helped put together for them this year. By introducing them to various past players and coaches from the club.
Who was your favourite interview?
Who was my favourite interview? That's a very good question. The ones we've done this year, we started at number 26 because Rocco thought of this idea of every episode number, we'd get someone who wore that Guernsey number. So we were up to Guernsey number 26 at the start of the year, seeing they did 25 episodes last year. So we've started this concept this year. So we started with David Rees-Jones at number 26, and then we had Dennis Armfield at 27 and Spiro Korkamilis at 28, Heath Scotland at 29, Jared Wade at 30, Tom Elvin at 31. You can see all of these interviews on the Jumper Punch channel. David Glasgow at 32, Ryan Houlihan at 33, Simon Wiggins at 34, Peter Dean at 35. He was one of the really good ones. 36 was Mark McClure, Wayne Harms at 37, Shane Robertson, remember him? Played in the 87 Premiership, number 38. 39, obviously, Ange. He'd probably be the best. He'd probably be my favourite one because he is so funny. And some of the stories he told were just gold. Absolute gold. Ange Christo at 39. Michael Jamison at 40. Peter Brown, you might not remember Peter Brown, but he was a full forward for Carlton in the 1979 Premiership. The only number 41 ever to play in a Premiership side. 42, we went and saw Robert Walls. That was a fantastic interview too. 43 was Kuda, Anthony Kuda-Fiddies. Andrew Carazzo, we did at number 44, and we only just recorded number 45 about 2 nights ago with Anthony Francina. We recorded one with David Allard when we were in Perth about 2 weeks ago. So he's coming up the week after. I'm giving you a bit of a sneak preview here. And so then we've only got, I think, another 4 to go after that. So
you're going into the reserves players.
We're going in. We get not quite. Number 47. There's a Premiership player who played a really great game in 1979 in the Premiership who wore 47, and we're going to go and visit him. Do you remember who that was?
Gee whiz.
He played on the wing, and he sort of had reddish curly hair. Anyone out there who's watching right now, maybe you can send us a comment if you think you can identify who that player was. He wore number 47 for Carlton in 1979. I'll tell you at the end of the show. Then number 48, we've got a special one coming up for 48, 49 and 50. So then we'll get into not Jordan During, no. But he did wear number 48. Nice try. So anyway, there's a few more to come. But next year, we're going to go and count back from the other numbers down. So we're going to start at 25 and make our way down to 1. So that'll certainly allow us to interview a lot of fantastic players in those numbers, you would think, wouldn't you? 25 down to 1?
Yeah, there'll
be a smorgasbord of players to choose from.
Yeah.
But anyway, getting back to the point, yes, the Jumper Punch, they do a great job. It's a fantastic show. I know it goes for a fair while, over 3 hours most weeks nowadays, but there's so much in it. There's lots of funny segments. It's not just a show about football or about Carlton. It's got all sorts of variety in it. It's almost like a combination of, you know, the footy show, the front bar, hey, it's Saturday, and something like that. Those 3 shows. It's almost like a bit of a mishmash of those. I'm probably Wog Boy because it is very much centred around those 3 Italian boys in the northern suburbs. Gina Harris, you've knocked it right on the head. Well done, Peter Francis.
Did you get the Batocchi small goods and the Patra orange juice for that, or what?
Yes, and don't forget the Ballantyne's chocolates.
And when you travel with Tosca.
Yes. And we'll even send your husband a Pleco shirt. All right, then. I think we're pretty much at it now. An hour and 15. We've gone over a bit. But thanks, everyone, for joining us tonight. And we hope you've enjoyed the program. Let us know your thoughts. If you enjoy the show, do us a little favour and subscribe to the channel in the blue corner. It doesn't cost you anything. Someone asked me the other day, if I subscribe to a channel, does that cost me anything? No, it doesn't. So you can subscribe to as many channels as you like. It really helps us if you subscribe and you like our pages and like our posts, and share them with your friends as much as possible. Get the word out. So you do us a big favour if you're enjoying the show. If you don't enjoy the show and you really don't like it, well, then just keep it to yourself, will you? All right, Steve, I think that's just about time for us to go. What do you say?
Yeah.
All right, let's hope we can do the job next week against Adelaide. In the meantime, go Blues.